All right, that takes us to item number 9, which is Community Risk Assessment and Long-Range Master Plan Staff Update on Achievements and Potential Funding Options. And we're going to go to Fire Chief first, or? Okay, Chief?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, honorable members of the council. Excuse my voice, I still don't have it back from Sunday.
I'm right there with you for a different reason, I'll bet.
Big win for the Chiefs.
Big loss for the Niners. Remember when you used to be chief? Remember that?
That's pretty good. That's pretty good one. This is continued business. This is an update on the Community Risk Assessment and Long Range Master Plan. I gave an update on this last April. And at the conclusion of this, we'll be also presenting some options for funding for the remaining recommendations that have yet to be completed. As stated, we received this report in March of 2023. We started the process in the middle of 2022. A lot of information was required for us to arrive at the end of this report. And then, as I just mentioned, I gave an update on where we were 4 months in, just a month after receiving this report in April of 2023. I placed the recommendations into these buckets: EMS system, programs, planning, apparatus, training, staffing, and infrastructure. And the corresponding numbers within the parentheses are what aligned with the 27 recommendations. You'll notice that the top one in EMS system, there's 2 18s. We realized that there was a typo in the actual recommendations for the report, and there were, in fact, 2 18s. So instead of 26 numerical recommendations, there's actually 27. So completed items to date. And honestly, I have to give a lot of credit to this council for supporting a lot of items that have been brought forth over the last year. Most significant is the implementation of our EMT program. Put that one at the top. With that, we're able to deploy a mixed staffing model. We now have EMTs in addition to our paramedics. Although I put this as completed, it's completed per what the report says, but we have work still to be done. We still have work to be done on alleviating our call volume of our medic units per se. We're a busy system. You've heard me say it before, but for the purposes of this report, we've made some significant progress, and you have had a hand in approving a couple of my recommendations. We've hired a nurse coordinator that is shared resource between Santee and Lakeside. We've hired a medical director, a shared resource for all of our central zone agencies. We hired an administrative battalion chief who is in charge of training and EMS. We married the EMS to the training, although that was not a recommendation in this report, because of the need. With our EMS program, our EMT program that we implemented, we needed someone to assist with the management of these personnel, which now is 12 part-time EMTs and 4 full-time EMTs, so 16 additional personnel. There was several mentions of a need for normalizing some of our training, looking for alternative sites, and refocusing on our fire competencies. And thanks to some of the work of Deputy Fire Chief Bagley, we have really focused over the last year on our operational capabilities and core competencies. To the point where I got to mention, give a shout out to Jesse Fournier in the audience here. We're not just tagging along in the Central Zone. We're leading the charge. And Jesse and Captain Thompson took it upon themselves to develop some curriculum they deployed to our entire Central Zone agencies. They taught numerous classes over the months of January. And so, again, this refocusing on our operational competencies permeate our entire organizations, and we have amazing people doing amazing work. Thank you, Jesse, by the way. And additionally, we were able to update our mission and values last year, which was a great endeavor. Participation from our entire department. Our entire department had the opportunity, and now we do have a new mission statement and value statement. Some items that are in progress. Reduction of APOT, which is our ambulance patient offload times. We put a lot of time and energy into this. We implemented billing of hospitals, the first in the county to do that. I see it on multiple committees throughout the county trying to address this issue. It is now an objective of the county fire chiefs to address this and quantify what the impact is throughout our entire system. There is now legislation in place from the state of California, AB 40, that demands that there are some accountability measures, we haven't defined what those are, for hospitals with timelines of implementation in July of this year, and then some we'll call it enforcement in December of this year. So a lot of stuff is going on with APOP, but I put ongoing because this is going to be a long game battle. I was just looking at the numbers. AB 40 states that we need to get to 90% of the time having offload delays of less than 30%. That's the goal. Right now, as of today, 76%. So there is still a gap, and we still have several. Every single day, there are still ambulances waiting on the wall for over 2 hours, every single day throughout the county. So we've made progress. We'll continue to work on this, but it is ongoing. Increasing our WUI efforts. We submitted for the hazard mitigation grant. We put in, and the council approved this, for a grant for another Type 3 engine that will be stationed at Station 5. We received our Type 6 apparatus, which is a small-scale brush rig, through the San Diego River Conservancy that was highlighted a couple weeks ago. And in addition, emergency termination on the Forester Creek area that allows us to do some brush clearing efforts. And also, we have our public works, our CSD is involved in trying to assist with some clearing that we've done over the last few years. Replacing engine 5. We put in for the replacement of one of our Type 1 engines, or we call it our fire engine, 2 years ago. But I made mention at a couple council meetings ago that the production timeline for a brand new fire engine is approximately 3 to 4 years. So we're still waiting on that one. Implementation of a fire inspection program. Our 3 battalion chiefs, our shift battalion chiefs, are now assigned to our facilities. They put a lot of time and energy to the best of their ability to make them habitable and to oversee that, make sure that we don't have any major safety violations. And we just completed our Class A fire inspections that we do annually, and our personnel knocked it out of the park. Greater focus on public education analysis, first responder cost recovery. I'm actively working with finance on DIF and strategic plan in progress. Training mannequin, this was an easy one. We're working with Lakeside on a potential grant. And if that doesn't happen, we're gonna request use of our EMS funds from donations from our community. A couple of these items are not applicable, and it has to do with the contractor being a national level contractor. And this might be a surprise, but there's some things that just can't be done in California. They're a little bit different. I know. So one of the items, a couple of the items recommended was a cost-benefit analysis for medications and procedures. We really don't have that latitude. The law is the law. This is what we have to carry on our apparatus. This is what we're able to do. There are sometimes some deviations that are made allowable for temporary time periods. And there's pilot programs such as the community paramedic program that has been being analyzed for multiple years at the state of California level, but we don't have the ability just to implement these programs. So 2 of them, fortunately, out of 27, not too bad. And then I'll move on to the items that have yet to be completed. Additional firefighters, replacement of Fire Station 4 and the addition of fire stations, although not specifically stated as a recommendation. If you look at read between the lines as far as allowing the normalizing of unit usage and improvement of overall response times. There's a lot of language about giving me the discretion to address this issue of decreasing our response times. And they don't specifically say you should have a station here or here or here. They just said you need to do something about it to improve your response times because you have a couple deficiencies. Replacement of engine 205. These are expensive piece of equipment, and we can't tackle everything all at once. So 2 years ago, we were successful in getting this in the budget. Last year, we were not. We'll try again this year and see what is available. But as stated, it's 4 years likely from the time that we put in our order. Splitting fleet and identifying a new location. We've spoke about this before as well. the current status of our shop is pretty poor. There's no running water in that facility, and we have 2 mechanics that work there full-time. The capital improvement and replacement program, automated inventory control system, and a fire hydrant inspection program that there's an asterisk by because Padre Dam is the entity that does our fire inspections. But it's a reminder to me I need to engage with them on how we address this. I'm going to focus on 2 items that I've said many times, and not to beat this drum, but these are the most significant. Staffing, items 1 and 2. The contractor highlighted that we are a little bit below national and Western region standards. And I've brought this up in some public forums about our staffing levels in 2001, which was 13 firefighters on our response apparatus, and our staffing in 2024. 23 plus years later, we still have the same number of firefighters on our response apparatus. Now, there are some nuances to this, because over the years, in the last 24 years, we have had supplemental staffing, and then we had non-supplemental staff. We were called constant minimum staffing, and then we've had supplemental staffing again. These are apples and oranges, though, and I need to highlight this point, because supplemental staffing does not impact the number of firefighters that arrives at your house on a daily basis. Supplemental staffing means that when someone calls out sick for overtime, they're injured, or we simply have vacancies, we allow our extra staff to fill those positions. It doesn't increase the number of firefighters I have on an engine. We have those 3 things that I just mentioned: people on annual leave, people out sick, people injured, or vacancies. I should say 4 things every single day in this fire department, every single day. So in theory, the idea of maybe having supplemental staffing should increase our effective firefighter force. It does not. It's very different than constant minimum staffing, which states on this day, every single day, on these apparatus, there'll be X number of firefighters. And so I say that just for full transparency, that there's some nuances to this, but the number of firefighters we have responding on engines is the same. It is the same. Our infrastructure. Our fire station 4 was rated as poor, and here's a picture of our shop. Steel Butler building with some roll-up doors, kind of scabbed in electrical, no running water, no sewer. And they said that this is really not inhabitable. It should not be used as a permanent structure. It is what it is. It is what it is, though. And we know this we've been talking about it, and we're working to address it. We have been working to address these items. It's worth noting, though, that we have had 2 operational fire stations since 1964. Our first fire station went in service in 1961. Our second fire station went in service in 1964. We have moved these fire stations. Station 1 is now what we call Station 4 on Cottonwood. Station 2 is now what we call Station 5 on Carlton Oaks. But there have been no increases in fire stations. We have 2 fire stations. And by only having these 2 locations to respond out of, I am hamstrung as far as what we can provide from a response standpoint. Those are the locations they respond from. This is where we can get in 4 minutes in this city. And the AP Triton reported that we have these 2 gaps. We have a gap to the south, we have a gap to the north. And we shared this vision with this group a few times, that 4 fire stations will give us much better coverage, and we will be able to effectively respond and get on scene within 4 minutes. That will translate. I can promise, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here. It will translate to better outcomes for our citizens. Now, the order of operations has changed a little bit since the first time I presented this, because we have moved forward with some things. We've allocated funding for a temporary 3rd fire station. We have allocated funding for the design of our 3rd fire station, and this will be at the operations yard. I still will beat this drum forever, is that we do have identified need for increased staffing. But I'm also very understanding of the fact that there's a finite amount of funds that we have available in the city, and that if we want to achieve all these grand plans, if we want to right-size this department, that we need to secure some additional funding, because these are pretty high-dollar infrastructure projects. If we do that, moving on to shop design and relocation, 3rd station and shop rebuild, as I mentioned, we have the money allocated for the design of our 3rd station, but we don't have anything for the actual construction. design of a fourth fire station, and then the building of a fourth fire station. I'm sorry, I skipped over, but Station 4, yeah, my bad. Station 4 design, Station 4 build. Station 4 was built in 1972. Contractor stated that it's at the end of its useful life, and we know that the council is aware that that facility needs some work. And then moving on to those two items, the fourth fire stations. And the costs, these are today's dollars, and based on $1,400 per square foot for a brand new fire station, based on our best guess of what it will cost for a shop, a fire engine, staffing, $55,450,000. Not new. I know I've presented this information before. I've updated some of the slides based upon some numbers that we have. But at this point, I'm going to hand it off to City Manager Marlene Best, and then she'll kick it back over to our Finance Director, Heather Jennings.
Okay, thanks, Chief. My role in tonight's presentation is to talk about the various opportunities and options that the city has looked at to try to find ways to fund the infrastructure that the Chief just outlined. As the city manager, when this was first presented, the city council said, okay, great, Chief, go out, do what you can within your budget, get those accomplishments done. City manager, come up with a way, how do we finance the rest of this heavy-duty infrastructure? How do we get there? In looking at what our costs would be to build out, based upon the recommendations from the AP Triton report, we're looking at a goal of approximately $4.5 million a year to get all of those things completed in the domino effect of what the Chief just outlined. And if we're going to do that outside of bake sales and collecting donations at pancake breakfasts, we're going to need a real plan, or we're going to need to look at some other opportunities. City staff have been informed and told that there may be some additional monies available at the County of San Diego to go towards public safety. Now, we've heard about that. We've done some research on it. We would need some partners. There's perhaps some opportunities there, although I would say I think the county tries to make use of their dollars, and they're not going to want to give them up too easily. So the discussion could take a long time, a protracted negotiation, and potentially some litigation if, in fact, we can find those funds. So right now, we're not looking at that as a feasible opportunity to move forward. Citizens at home would say, hey, how come you can't just cut budgets elsewhere and come up with enough money to build all these stations? Well, if we were going to do that, we don't want to cut the public safety budget for fire and sheriff, of course. We want to keep our citizens safe. So the rest of the city budget would have to be reduced by over 20%. Since staff is the largest cost of any public agency, that means laying off a large portion of everybody who works for the city to be able to accomplish building new stations. That does not, in my opinion, serve this city well. Our citizens have come up with a lot of programs that they enjoy and they respect, they like to participate in. We have good services that we provide from all of our departments, and cutting them by 20% doesn't seem to make a lot of good sense, and I think we'd have a lot of revolt from our citizens if we tried to do that. Another way to look for monies, which everybody wants to look at, is how come we can't get a grant? Why wouldn't we just go for a grant? Well, quite frankly, there's no grants available on the federal or state level to go after brick and mortar infrastructure for public safety facilities, whether it's a fire station, whether it's a shop, or whether it is a sheriff's station even. There's not a grant available to do that. You can get some small grants for technology, and we have utilized those. We've got radios, we've done other types of things. You might get a dispatch, computer, but it's not going to build the building. There's not a grant available to do that. Does the city of Santee and our fire department look for grants? Every single day. Every department does, and our fire department is no different. We utilize grants quite a bit. In fact, we've used grants to get a lot of services and new equipment and new apparatus that we've had. We use grants for training programs. So we utilize grants already a lot. There's just nothing out there that's going to help us build new buildings. That's just not going to get there for us, or provide some of the additional funding for the staff that the chief outlined. The next source of funding that you could look at is SLEMSA. SLEMSA is, in short term, it's the replacement for CSA 69. However, the issue with SLEMSA is those monies are for emergency medical only. They're not to provide general fire services, general fire support. Legally, we can't use SLEMSA money to go buy a fire engine. We can't use SLEMSA money to build new facilities for firefighters. only dealing with emergency medical services. So SLEMS is not a source to build new facilities for us. When you talk to citizens here in City of Santee, they say, well, you know, you're going to get new stores. How come new stores? That's going to bring you new revenue. Why won't that help get us over the hump? So future economic development goes in spurts. It comes in bits and pieces. It comes over time. And it's not a guaranteed source that we could use to go after a loan to be able to build some of these facilities. Not unlike what you would do if a mortgage holder has their house and they want to go out and buy a car. They need a guaranteed source of income to be able to qualify to go purchase that vehicle. They're not going to be able to say, well, I'm paying my mortgage and I think this month I got overtime, so I'm going to have enough to pay for a car loan. But next month I'm not really sure. But month and a half from now, though, I'm going to have more. So that will work. You're not going to get a loan. You're not going to be able to finance construction of facilities based upon that information. Economic growth also, building new homes, building new retail, building new industrial facilities here in the city has helped the city fund our operations going forward. So over the last 20, 40 years even, the city has grown to keep pace with our population and our services and our shopping and our dining and our industrial opportunities. Those increased revenues help the city keep pace with increased costs. Because newsflash for all of our citizens, when you are all paying more, so is the city paying more. So counting on new economic growth isn't necessarily going to get us over the hump to get over $55 million worth of infrastructure. Everything costs more for us, staffing costs, electricity, utilities, just like everybody at home. And quite frankly, when you look at all of the smaller bits and pieces, even for our operations, it costs us more annually just to put toilet paper in the city park restrooms. So every little thing costs more, and we do a really good job, I think, from our city council perspective and staff to be able to manage those dollars. And we do it almost all the time with grants or small increases in other sources of funding. But none of it is going to be able to be counted on to be able to build new facilities. The next item is development impact fees. Commonly, everybody wants to know, well, can't you just have new growth come in and build new stations? Can't they take care of this issue? Legally, no, they cannot. Development impact fees are charged on a per unit or per building basis based upon the new use that's going in those. They legally can, and we can require them and do require them to pay their fair share of what their impact is going forward. But we cannot legally ask a new homeowner to come in and help pay for a gap in fire stations that haven't been there for the last 20 years. They have to help pay going forward for their impact, not what was previously existing in the city before them. Another common way that people have said we could get new revenue is let's look at a TOT increase. For the citizens who aren't aware, TOT is a transient occupancy tax that is a tax that is charged on individuals who stay in some of our hospitality facilities here in the city. Some of our hotels, Santee Lakes, we get transient occupancy tax from those facilities. If we look, currently our tax is at 10%. Between 10 and 12 is a common rate throughout San Diego County. If we were to look at, let's bump up our TOT, we'll go up to 12%. Based upon the amount we get a year, that's only going to give us maybe another $200,000. That's not quite going to get us to 4.5. So increasing TOT really is not a viable option to get new fire facilities, besides which an increase in TOT has to go on a ballot and must be approved by 2/3 of the voters before you could make that action take place. The next thing that we've heard from citizens is, well, there's a fire benefit fee. Can't we just increase that and make that happen? The fire benefit fee currently funds only about 9% of our fire department budget. So if we increase that, yes, it will certainly help. The rates right now is listed on the slide. You can see it's about $41 per residential unit and $492 for a commercial unit. If we wanted to be able to increase enough to cover the infrastructure costs alone for new fire facilities, you would have to raise that 5 times. That means a homeowner is going to go from $41 to over $200 a year. A business is going to go from nearly $500 to roughly $2,500 a year for their fire benefit fee. That's a huge increase for some of our smaller local businesses here. It's a big hit. Not only that, but to increase the fire benefit fee, you have to go to 2/3 vote by citizens and voters here in Santee to be able to make that happen. And even if we were to get that, it wouldn't be enough to cover for the staffing costs. So those brand-new facilities we could build would be boarded and shuttered because we wouldn't have enough money to put new firefighters in them. So in my position, I don't think that's a really viable option for us. The last item that I will bring up there is that it is a tax, if you will, that is paid only by property owners in the city of Santee. It's solely funded by people who own property in our city. If you're a renter or a tenant, your landowner may decide to pass that cost along to you as well, but it's solely funded on a property basis. The next item that we looked at was voter-approved bond issues, or GO bond, a general obligation bond. Generally speaking, those bonds are based upon a valuation of, as the slide says, $22 per $100,000 assessment. So could we make that work? Potentially. $22 per 1,000 doesn't sound too bad, 100,000. But there would be issues because look at the price of most housing. We talked about housing costs earlier here today. You're looking at not $100,000. You're looking at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000, $800,000. So multiply 5, 6, 7, 8 times that $22. And that's just for residential. On top of that, the home values and assessment values would be not quite equitable throughout the city. If you have a neighborhood with older homes, with a resident who's lived there for the past 25 years, they haven't sold the home, hasn't changed hands, it's assessed still at the same value of what it was when that person bought that property. If, on the other hand, the property across the street has sold 4 or 5 times over the last 20 years, the increased value based upon the sale price of that home provides that you're going to have a difference, even though it's in the same neighborhood, you're going to have people paying different rates for this particular measure. It requires a supermajority. 2/3 of the voters would have to approve it. And again, it's still based upon being paid only by property owners within the city of Santee. So the pool of who's going to pay for these costs is very limited. The last item that staff looked at, which is a very common way to finance new facilities for public agencies across the state of California, is a local sales tax. There are 9 cities in San Diego County, 9 out of 18. Half of the cities have an add-on sales tax. One of them has 2. This would be a sales tax that's paid every time somebody purchases an item in the city of Santee. So visitors who are coming to Santee would also help to pay for their public safety costs. We have over 1 million visitors who come to our community annually just in Santee Lakes and at the Sportsplex. If those individuals came and purchased any items, they would be helping to pay for the public safety services to help them have a great time here in our city because we want them to stay. We want them to keep coming. In addition to those visitors, we also have people that come here for our special events, our concerts in the park, our hop down the bunny trail, all of those events that we have. A lot of people who come don't live in town, but they might purchase something and help pay for their costs. We have people that come here to shop. We have people that come here to dine. We have people that come here to hike. We also have people who come and work here, but who don't live here. So employees that come and work in Santee and purchase goods and services would also be available to help cover some of the cost of taking care of their public safety if there was, heaven forbid, some sort of accident or they had a health problem here in the community. So from a staff perspective, council, what I can tell you is we think this is the most realistic way to support debt service for new fire station infrastructure. We could also fund the operations of those new fire stations, which means the staffing that the chief spoke about earlier. If this is a special tax just for fire services, it does require 2/3 of the voters in Santee to support it. General taxes are easier to get. You could, to have those approved by 50+1, a simple majority throughout the community. Looking at a sales tax scenario, based upon your direction to me to figure out a way to get us over the hump and start this process, I authorized a report to be done looking at alternative scenarios for a sales tax option. And that's included in your packet, and our finance director, Heather, is going to go through that so that we can talk about what those options are. I want to stress for the community, because Santee TV people will look at this for the next several months. Tonight, we are not asking the city council to make a choice on whether or not we're going to fund any sort of efforts to look at, yes, let's place a sales tax on the ballot by the City Council of Santee. We are not at that level. There is no action required on the part of the council tonight. This is exploratory, it is informational, it is just so that we can look at how do we get something moving forward to provide positive public safety in the city of Santee, and what are our options to be able to fund that. There's no action required by the city council tonight. It's just informational. So Heather, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and City Council members. So as Marlene was mentioning, I am going to walk through the report that we received from the financial consultant. This is the Fire Station Infrastructure Services Financing Analysis. The report was completed in December 2023. This is a comprehensive sales tax analysis prepared to determine what sales tax rate would be required to fund a bond initiative for the construction of the fire station infrastructure, along with the operation of the new facilities. So a little bit of background, fire station infrastructure and operations. This is divided into 3 phases. Phase 1A and Phase 1B are the new fire station and fleet center at the city operations yard. Phase 2 is Fire Station 4 reconstruction. Phase 3 is the fire station in northern Santee. The total estimated costs for all of the infrastructure is about $54 million, and this is 2023 dollars, with annual operating costs to include the addition of 6 firefighter paramedics at Station 4 to man the squad vehicle, an addition of 9 firefighter paramedics at the new fire station in northern Santee. Also included would be engine depreciation, maintenance, and materials and supplies. The calculation of the bond amount. So the bond amount that's listed in the report is about $69 million. So we have a CPI inflated construction cost of about $59 million, and this is due to the timing of the construction of the projects. Included is the fire engine. And then also, it's a requirement of a bond issuance that you do have a fund reserve, and usually it's about 10%, and this reserve stays with the bond issuance until the very end, so the last payments are paid from the reserve. This is about $6.9 million. And then cost of issuance is usually about 2%, $1.4 million. This would be a 30-year term bond estimated at about 5% interest rate, and this would produce an annual bond payment of about $4.5 million. So the sales tax calculation. So sales tax was calculated or estimated based on taxable sales in the city of Santee divided by retail and food service square footage. So with that, the annual taxable sales per year is about $365 per square foot. The growth rate is estimated to be approximately 2 stores per year with an inflation factor of about 4.42%. Now, the inflation factor is an average of the last 13 years. That's the data that's available from CDTFA, which is the California Department of Fees and Taxes Administration, I believe. So that was the information available. I know that today our inflation is lower, but this is an estimate. And then to the right there, the graphical presentation, that is just to show what a half-cent sales tax would look like as far as income generation. So we've got, in the first year, it would generate a little over $5 million, and then by year 30, over $20 million. So in the report, there are 6 scenarios that are presented. I'm going to go through the scenarios and talk about each one. Scenarios 1 and 2 include all the infrastructure, staffing, and operation costs. Scenario 1 is a quarter-cent sales tax. This does not bring in enough revenue to cover these costs. Scenario 2 is a half-cent sales tax. The sales tax generated in total is sufficient, but the cash flow is negative until year 18. And then scenario 3 is a 3/4 cent sales tax, which has ample revenue, but probably more than is needed. So at this point, the city staff, city manager, fire chief, and myself, and the consultant reviewed the inputs of the calculation and came up with a new, kind of reorganized to develop something that would work. So scenario 4 is also a half-cent sales tax. The revenue generated in total is sufficient and the cash flow is stable. What changed with scenario 4 is staffing was phased, which resulted in operational savings. And what changed was the squad staffing from the reconstruction of Fire Station 4. The squad vehicle staffed at Fire Station 4 is staffed by 6 firefighter paramedics. Once the Northern Santee Fire Station is built, those 6 firefighter paramedics would now move over and join 3 more firefighter paramedics, and now have 9 firefighter paramedics at the Northern Fire Station. And then the the squad vehicle would cease being staffed. And this resulted obviously in operational savings. You can see in the graph there, the blue is the sales tax revenue, the red is the debt service, and you can see it's steady all the way through the 30 years. And then you can see the operational costs. The first 3 years are low, and then they jump up there in the 7th year once, I think it's the 7th or the 4th, I guess, once the other fire station is built. Scenario 5 is also a half-cent sales tax. This is feasible, and there is ample revenue generated, but the Northern Santee Fire Station is not included in this. So it does not include all of the infrastructure. It just includes the Phase 1, which is the fire station and fleet center at the ops yard, and then the reconstruction of Fire Station 2, which would include the staffing of the squad vehicle. And then scenario 6 is again a half-cent sales tax, and again, ample revenue generated. But with this one, the Fire Station 4 is not rebuilt. So all the scenarios that were studied are included in this report. City staff believes that scenario 4 is the most realistic and provides the greatest benefit to the citizens of Santee. That benefit is that all the infrastructure is completed and it's all staffed. And that's the conclusion of the presentation.
Speaker slips.
I have 2 speakers. The first speaker is Mark Hartman.
Good evening. Try to make it quick. I know it's Valentine's Day and a lot of information to digest, but I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Mark Hartman. I'm a Santee firefighter for anyone who does not know who I am, and I'm also the new president for the Santee Firefighters Association. So I just started this past January. I am new to this position. However, I'm not new to this city. I've had the privilege to grow up in Santee. I graduated from Santana High School, played baseball at Santee Pioneer Little League when it was at the Santee School District lot over there off of Mission Gorge, and spent many nights at the roller skate land. So I know many people in this room have seen the growth in this city, and it's been a privilege to be able to watch that. But one of the things that has come to my attention working as a Santee firefighter is seeing that the fire department has not grown with the city. And I know that that's obviously a big topic for today. So what the Santee firefighters are trying to do is trying to solve that problem. I'd like to invite everybody today to go to our kickoff event and fundraiser, which will be at Jimmy's Restaurant on February 21st, next Wednesday. We're going to have a meet and greet from 5 to 6, which will be free to anyone who would like to be there. And from 6 to 9, we'll roll right into our kickoff fundraiser. You can learn about the initiative, talk to firefighters, enjoy drinks and appetizers, and even a raffle. And I know there's a lot of questions in regards to the tax initiative and what we're trying to do. And my advice is I still am learning a lot and trying to answer some of these questions. But my advice is to show up, ask the questions, and even if it's not support, but just to educate ourselves and try to come up with a solution for the city of Santee. You could start out by viewing our website, which is www.protectsantee.com, where you can sign up for the event, register, and we'd love to see you there. Thank you.
I have one question. That's the question I keep getting asked the most, and that is, when is your calendar available?
A calendar, or our calendar, soon. Coming
Soon.
very
All right.
soon.
That's all I keep hearing is when is their calendar going to be available?
The next speaker is Patrick Henry.
Your Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. I apologize for that little, it might have seemed a little disjointed at first. I was supposed to speak first, so got a little order of operations there. My name's Patrick Henry. I'm a very loyal employee. I've been here for 15 years, born and raised in the East County. I love this city. I'm very thankful for my job. When I came here to work here, there were 200 people in the room. They hired 3 of us. We waited 6 months after our chief's interview, and all top 3 individuals were still available. This was during the recession, and I've never forgotten that. We have a problem in the city. We need infrastructure. We need a small amount of staffing. Our city has done a great job over the years of balancing the budget aggressively, and that gives me ammunition to ask for a defined need, which is a citizens initiative, which is a special tax, half-cent sales tax, with a 30-year sunset that's going to fund our infrastructure needs and our staffing needs. Very minimal staffing needs, which I actually believe our city could absorb right now, but you don't have anywhere to put them. We need to do this the right way. I have to put my name on this as a firefighter. I'm not a politician. I don't do this normally. I'm taking on this Herculean effort, and so is my team, of figuring out how we're going to put together a citizens initiative. It's going to cost us $300,000. I've exhausted the firefighters' entire life savings. I started with $87,000. I have to raise $300,000. I don't think there's anybody in this room that's raised $300,000. But we're willing to take this on because we want to do the right thing. We're doing that by making sure that we do a special tax. This is not for pay and benefits. This is not to pad any pensions. This is specifically earmarked for infrastructure and the small amount of staffing. And I feel very strongly that we need a Citizens Oversight Committee, and we're going to write that into the legislation. That Citizens Oversight Committee is going to monitor the metrics. If the sales revenue is $6.8 million a year, great. If it's higher, let's move the sunset up. The Citizens Oversight Committee can dissolve the sales tax measure at any point in time. We have to sell this to a conservative constituency because that's what I am, and that's what I represent. And the Santee firefighters, we want to do the right thing. And our motivation is retention. We've lost 17 firefighters in the past 4 to 5 years. 26 firefighters we have on the floor. That's 70% of our workforce has left for other departments. Thank you.
No further speakers, sir.
Thank you. I'm going to start down here. Rob, you have some comments?
Sure. So I was the one that fought the last sales tax initiative that our city thought about doing when I was president of the Chamber of Commerce. Keith wanted to do a sales tax initiative, and I fought it vigorously and came up with the whole Shop Santee and Save, and our revenue grew. To say that I've been adamant about no new taxes, no new anything, no new increases in cost to our citizens over the last 13 years I've been here now would be an understatement. However, we've exhausted all resources. This is no longer, this is not about going to our general fund so we can fund pet projects, so we can fund the Pet the Cats program or I Love Dogs program or whatever our pet projects are. This is for infrastructure. This is for public safety. This is for things that we used to be able to do with the funds that redevelopment funds. We used to be able to do this with redevelopment funds until Governor Brown took those away from us and Governor Newsom decided, yeah, he ain't giving it back. So we lost millions and millions of dollars that were saved for new stations and station infrastructure rehabbing, and it was taken. It was literally taken from us almost overnight. Minto, you were there. I mean, it was, and if we didn't do it, the penalties on a daily basis were in the thousands of dollars. It was absurd the way it all went down, but there was literally nothing we could do about it. And Sean, you know, your staff tried to do everything they could, and any monies that ever could come back, we've sought and fought for, but it's not coming back. The reality is we are stuck with today's reality, and today's reality is that we cannot do it based on our property tax revenue. I don't think it's fair to just once again further burden the homeowners and property owners and make it even more difficult for those that are not yet homeowners and property owners in the city of Santee by putting it on just the backs of those that own homes. I think the only fair way, and because on top of that, our fire department shows up at the grocery store. Our fire department shows up at Costco. Our fire department shows up at our events. When somebody goes down, when somebody gets hurt, when somebody's in need, our fire department's there, whether they're a citizen or not a citizen, our fire department is there. The only equitable way to finance this would be with a sales tax measure, and because then everybody that shops in Santee, that plays in Santee, that does things in Santee, then they are actually contributing to that. And as a homeowner, if you know what, you think you're strapped, okay, maybe you curb your spending a little bit. Maybe you're not going out so much, and I hate the fact that may hurt some of our local businesses, but the reality is that there sincerely is just, we've looked at the 7 ways from Sunday, guys. There's no other way to make this happen. I mean, we joke about bake sales. We joke about calendars. That's not a joke because you guys actually did that. But who was on the cover, by the way? Who made the cover?
William Jen.
Yeah,
Hey, buddy.
congratulations on that. Sports Illustrated Man of the Year over there. We joke about this, but the reality is we're all actually doing some of these things to try and generate any darn dollar we possibly can to go towards these things. It's just, it's something into the wind. And we actually have to, we can't just pretend anymore. We can't sit up here and be, politicians and just talk about, well, you know what, that's a good thing. We're going to look into that. We're going to have a meeting about that. Then we're going to have another meeting about that meeting and talk about another meeting after the meeting. We've got to, it's got to happen. I get it. It's, because we wouldn't do it. It's now becoming a citizens initiative, but, I'll be the one that is maybe the contrarian up here and just state, as much as I hate any sales tax increases, as much as I hate any of that stuff and have for so many years and fought against it, I don't see any other way. And good for you guys for stepping up and doing this. God bless you guys. I appreciate your efforts. I'll be behind you.
And first, let's start with thanking the city manager and the staff. You guys, I know this was a hard ask to go out there and really look at how we can make this happen. And the chief, obviously, for the last year or so, roughly, looking at really the assessments to our city. And the standards of coverage service that we have is kind of our guiding document today, the recommendations you've gotten, obviously, from them, and obviously your expertise as being our fire chief and giving us the realities of where we are today, right? We can only move forward, like Councilman McNella said. And there's a lot of tough decisions here, for us to make here at the council and as a staff. But, fundamentally, you guys heard me say over the last 3 years that we need a plan for some of the things that we haven't done in the city or in the past. And two primary things are public safety and paving the roads. We have not made a plan for these things over the last, decade, 2, 3, 40 years of our city.
We've made plans.
Sure.
That's sufficient.
Call it what it is, but we don't have a plan to take care of these facilities, these staffing, and the road maintenance. We've made significant strides in the last 3 years, and we've had real conversations. So that's what I do respect, and thank you guys for making all that happen. You know, today is an informational only. You know, just, again, thank you to staff for bringing this to me. We got some tough decisions to make here in the city, so that's all I have to say right now.
Ron?
Well, I'm kind of with the rest of the group. I don't really see an answer to this. I don't think we need to spend $55 million, but that's just my first personal opinion. I think we can get somewhere in between. Rob brought up Shop Santee, and that a while back, you know, and I always said Santee's where East County shops, because when you talk to people, they're coming from Alpine, they're coming from Campo sometimes, and they're coming from all over. And rather than burden the citizens, these people use our services too. So they're coming into town and they're using our services. A lot of times we see a lot of the app that we get is Pulse Point, and I see what's happening. I don't actually have the details of what's going on, and every hour of the day, just about, these firemen or paramedics are out on the street helping people. And so we have to make sure that we do back them up. We have to make sure that there's a way to back them up. Again, I don't necessarily agree with the whole 55 million. I think we can come somewhere in between, but I think we can grow into that if we need to. And I just don't see another way. We keep getting state mandates coming down here to the city, and they forget to send a check when they do that. And my answer is, when you're making a law, you need to attach a check to the top of that law. Well, unfortunately, our state doesn't do that. So we have to eat those expenses through a city. And what the chief was talking about, the 30-minute rule, that's a state law. Now, that's really the hospital's problem. The hospital was actually getting pretty close to that. But you see our firefighters sit. I've been one of those persons sitting on the wall with the firefighters. On the other side, though, I was one in the bed there waiting for something to happen, and that's a lot of time that we spend. And we need the infrastructure to help. We need the people to help. We got to solve this problem, and that's something I think we need to work on.
My thought was $55 million was probably too low, just based on construction costs. So, but I appreciate all the...
Real quick, we just saw a 13% decrease in construction costs by the National Builders Association. So maybe we're going in the right direction?
Nope, not in California. Can never say that right. Anyway, you know, I look at the city as a whole, and I appreciate Vice Mayor Trotter's comments about public safety and paving roads, but, you know, the city is much more than that. And the things that make a city attractive are all the other services that we provide as well, and they all need to be funded. So, you know, I was happy to hear the city manager say that we're just, you know, not interested in cutting other departments by over 20%, because we already run lean and mean as a city on all levels. And it's really important that we're fiscally responsible that way as a city and a council. But there's a point of diminishing returns with everything. And you don't get a business like Trader Joe's, which everybody said would never come to the city of Santee, to come to the city of Santee if we don't do the things that we're doing collectively now across the entire city. And that's every department. So I just want to make sure that I say that. And it was funny because somebody that doesn't even live in Santee called me to congratulate us on, you know, bringing Trader Joe's into Santee, because it was one of those biggest jokes, right? They'll never come. And I said, well, you know, we don't have anything to do with that. And he said, well, yeah, actually you do. It's the way you run the city. You know, it's the way you direct the city. You know, those are the things that make these kinds of businesses attractive. So I just wanted to say that I do think we're a well-run city. There's a lot of things that we do very, very well. But what I always focused on running Santee Lakes was making sure that two priorities, safe and clean. And if you take those concepts to the broader picture of the city of Santee and it's safe and clean, that attracts, people want to shop here if it's safe and clean. They want to live here if it's safe and clean. They want to raise their families here. They want to recreate here. All those things happen when we focus on those core principles. And safe and clean, our public safety is a big part of that. So I understand the need that, the infrastructure to do deferred maintenance on buildings. There's also, again, a point of diminishing returns, and we've hit that on Fire Station 4 probably decades ago. And Fire Station 5 will probably not be far behind because now it's over 20 years old, right? 20-something? So I know we need to do something. I'm glad the firefighter, paramedics are taking that on to try to find a solution for that. I love the idea that you are being so fiscally conscious, I guess, of what we are as a city as well and what our constituents expect. I also like the, you put 75, was it 75 cents? Or a quarter of a, 0.75, hey, that's a hard pill to swallow. And then the other point of diminishing returns on something like that, to Councilmember McNellis's point, is Shop Santee doesn't become as attractive anymore if the sales tax is too high. So you have to find the sweet spot on something like that as well. When I received the report and went through it, all it did was make me have a lot more questions. So the staff has been working with me on that. And I don't have all the answers tonight, and I don't expect to have all the data that I asked for by tonight. So, and it's not so important to what we're discussing tonight. It's just for my knowledge. But I did want to say that one thing that I do have concern about, just in general, is services on the, at least ambulance service on the west end of Santee. When we look at the data and what the calls actually are and what they're for, it's ambulance services, the priority call, or like over 80% of the calls, and a lot of them happen on District 3. We have a lot of seniors living in that area, and I just want to be assured that if Station 5 can't cover that in 4 minutes, even if we do everything on the wish list, that area still gets served. And so if that means an ambulance-only station out there or something like that, I do want it to be considered while we're looking at this. And those are my comments.
Well, I want to thank this staff. Councilman McNellis, you made some really good points when you talked about when Governor Brown took away the redevelopment agency money, also known as RDA. Back in 2002-03, there was an initiative that was run in the state of California, and it was brought by most of the California cities. And it was to stop the taking away of money based on mandates. And Sean, I think you probably remember when we did that. I think it was Prop 1A or something. And it was very successful. And it basically said that the state government, if they have a mandate, they have to pay for it. And they actually found a loophole and quit paying for things. And then shortly after that, another proposition was brought, Proposition 22, and that was a proposition that said that, well, since the state's taking money for mandates and they don't pay for it, well, then they eventually have to pay it back and pay it back with interest. And they found a loophole or created a loophole in legislation to say, oh, no, we don't have to do that, although it's still on the books that they still have to. And then 2 years ago, when we had that, I think it was like $100 billion budget surplus that, got urinated away, the cities had gone to the state of California, said, we need you to pay back that $3 or $4 billion that you owe in back mandates. And they basically raised a middle finger to all the cities and said, no, we're not giving that to you. So every city in this state, counties within this state, are struggling every day because of these mandates put on us by the state government. State government doesn't raise taxes necessarily on everybody. They haven't done that in many years. However, what they do is they force communities like ours to pay and pay and pay. And then we're the bad guys. We have to do something to get money, to make ends meet. We can't go out and get another job because this is not a job where you get paid for like that. But what it is, it's a way to go out and ask your people that live in your community, the people visiting your community, to help out. Not that you don't help out enough, because good Lord knows we pay enough taxes. It's bad enough that the state of California created a law 2 years ago to say that because you make more money, you have to pay more for your electric bill now. They're trying to unwind that because they were not very intelligent about what they were doing. I don't want to pay taxes. I don't want to pay any more than I have to. But if I do have to pay taxes, I want to see what I'm getting for my money. I don't want it to go into some obscure account someplace where you think that you're getting something, but you never see it. If I build you a fire station, you know what? You're going to see you got a fire station. If I build you a second fire station, you're going to see that you got a fire station. And if I rebuild a run-down, dilapidated fire station more than 50 years old, you're going to see it. And when that ambulance, that fire truck comes to your house, that it's going to be the best equipment that we can provide you. I don't want to ever have to tell a friend or a family member that, it took too long for us to get there because we didn't have enough fire stations. Oh, we didn't have all the equipment we needed on a truck to put out that fire. We weren't able to get out there and inspect so that you could have a safe place around your home. I don't want to have to tell anybody that. I don't think anybody else here does. A fire department that does a job just because that's their job, you can't take anything away from them. That's pride, that's commitment, that's loyalty. And you know what? We have an obligation as a community to support those who protect us, the people that serve us, whether it's, picking up somebody, taking them to the hospital because they shattered an arm, or they went back and they took down their, garnish around their house. Those are stories that play out across our nation, play out across our state and our communities. And the people that we serve deserve better, the best that we can give. And even though we can't count on future revenue sources from businesses or industry or things like that, we know they're coming. This council, our staff has worked hard for many years. Pam White, our economic development manager, has been working hard for over 20 years to bring ideas in economic development to our city. We got involved in the International Council of Shopping Centers over 20 years ago. And the reason why we have so many good businesses is because we learned by going to these places and taking classes about what it takes to make a city function and not go broke. When we were in COVID for the first year, we posted a $1.5 million budget surplus. The second year, a $6 million budget surplus. One-time revenues that could be spent, not necessarily on many of those things that we would like to have spent them on. But what we did, and Vice Mayor Trotter led us on this, to get out there and put that extra money into roads because the roads were so bad. But you know what? Firefighters have to drive over those roads every single day. They don't need to be bouncing around. It's just something that we have to do. I'm very much in support of this. Now, I'm going to tell you that people in our community are going to hear from some people that are well known for being on the radio, we'll say, and say that we are nothing more than a tax and spend community. We're a city council. Well, I'll tell you what, we've gone to that person that told us there are alternatives to funding and we don't have to raise taxes. We don't have to do any of that stuff. And they were wrong, absolutely wrong. We sat down, we had meetings. Myself, the city manager, finance manager, we had meetings. And we've gone to the county and looked for all those funding mechanisms that we were told were out there. And they don't exist. So when people will tell you that all you are is a bunch of tax and spend council members, it's because they have another agenda. And that personality right now just wants to be in the state government so he can have a title because he's never going to get anything done. We're doing the right thing. These firefighters, they stepped up. They're doing the right thing. And I support you 100%. And I'm going to continue to support you. I think that's all I have. Did you get everything you need out of this tonight? As far as direction or whatever?
Yes, sir, we did.
All right. I think enough's been said. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time and your patience.